Charles Bronson was one of Hollywood's toughest tough guys, a man whose face was once described as looking like an eroded cliff. And his fame led him from poverty to a colonial farmhouse hidden in the Vermont mountains and a luxurious Malibu mansion. But before Charles Bronson became Hollywood's go-to tough guy, he lived a life that could have been ripped from the pages of a gritty screenplay. Born Charles Bukowski in a coal mining town in Pennsylvania, Bronson grew up in extreme poverty, so poor in fact that he once wore his sister's hand-me-down dress to school because it was the only clean clothing available. That kind of hardship forged the iron will that later defined his on-screen persona. When World War II broke out, Bronson enlisted in the U.S. Army Air Forces, serving as a tail gunner on B-29 bombers. He flew in combat missions over Japan and earned a Purple Heart for wounds sustained in action, a testament to the real-life courage that would later underpin his roles as a hardened vigilante and war hero. Bronson's transition from the battlefield to the backlot was anything but smooth. After the war, he worked a string of odd jobs, from coal mining to painting signs, before studying acting on the GI Bill. His steely presence and quiet intensity caught the eye of directors who saw in him something raw and authentic. In the 1950s and 60s, he racked up roles in war films and westerns like The Magnificent Seven and The Great Escape, often playing characters of few words but immense strength. His rugged looks and no-nonsense demeanor made him a standout, even in ensemble casts filled with screen legends. It wasn't until the 1970s that Bronson exploded into international superstardom. With the Death Wish franchise, he became an icon of gritty justice, embodying the lone man standing against a world gone mad. Audiences connected with his sense of moral clarity and quiet vengeance, and he quickly became one of the most bankable stars of his time, particularly in Europe, where he was revered as a cinematic force. Behind every stoic stare and clenched jaw was a man who had seen real violence and hardship, making his performances resonate with something unmistakably authentic. Now let's step inside the private world of Charles Bronson, where the ruthless vigilante of Death Wish traded his on-screen violence for horse training, antique hunting, and quiet family life. Our first stop takes us to the Green Mountains of Vermont, specifically to West Windsor, where Bronson and his second wife, actress Jill Ireland, created their most cherished family home. Named Zuleika Farm after their daughter, this property was far more than just a vacation retreat. It was where the Bronson family truly lived. The centerpiece of this 400-acre estate was a stunning yellow clapboard farmhouse built in 1791 by an English Tory who remained in Vermont after the Revolutionary War. When the Bronsons purchased the property in the early 1970s, they were captivated by its historic charm and complete privacy, tucked behind white birches in the Green Mountains. The main house was a sprawling two-story colonial featuring 6 bedrooms and a separate guest wing. According to Jill Ireland, the home had rooms I haven't even counted. But the true magic of the property lay in how the Bronsons transformed this 18th-century farmhouse into a modern equestrian estate while preserving its historic character. The couple invested heavily in creating world-class horse facilities. They built a massive 100 by 200-foot indoor arena with 22 attached box stalls, complete with tack rooms and office quarters. The property featured a round-covered training pen and a 200 by 400-foot jumping arena for their Arabian horses. Multiple fenced paddocks, each with run-in sheds, dotted the landscape, connected by miles of scenic trails. This wasn't just a hobby, it was a legitimate business operation. At its peak, the farm housed 25 horses, with half being boarders and half belonging to the Bronsons. The facility became so renowned in equestrian circles that it drew serious riders from across New England, particularly due to its proximity to Woodstock and the Green Mountain Horse Association. Inside the farmhouse, Charles Bronson revealed a side the public rarely saw. He became an avid antique collector, personally searching out pieces like a carousel horse he bought for daughter Zuleika. The home was filled with carefully curated antiques that reflected the actor's appreciation for craftsmanship and history. The property served as the Bronsons' primary residence for over 30 years, with Charles often saying he felt most at home there. Jill Ireland once remarked, "Charlie and I enjoy being here alone. We rarely bring guests, just the children." The Vermont farm represented everything Hollywood wasn't: peaceful, private, and profoundly normal. After the 1982 tax dispute with the IRS, where the agency initially claimed the horse farm wasn't a legitimate business, a claim the Bronsons successfully fought, the property continued to be their sanctuary until Jill's tragic death from breast cancer in 1990. Following Charles Bronson's death in 2003, the Vermont estate was valued at $5 million and became part of the complex inheritance that sparked family disputes. The property was eventually listed for sale in 2004 for $4,895,000, marketed as the area's most exemplary gentleman's estate. While Vermont offered escape from Hollywood, Bronson's Malibu property kept him connected to the industry that made him famous. Purchased as their primary California residence, the Malibu mansion became particularly significant during Jill Ireland's final years as she battled cancer. The sprawling oceanfront estate, valued at $8 million at the time of Bronson's death, represented the pinnacle of Southern California luxury. Unlike the rustic charm of their Vermont farm, the Malibu home embodied modern elegance with spectacular Pacific Ocean views. The property became the setting for one of the most poignant chapters in Bronson's life. It was here, on May 18, 1990, that Jill Ireland passed away at age 54 after her long battle with breast cancer. The loss devastated Bronson, who had been married to Ireland for 22 years and appeared with her in 15 films. After Jill's death, the Malibu mansion took on a different character. In 1998, Bronson married Kim Weeks, a former Dove audio employee who had helped record Ireland's audiobooks. The significant age gap and timing of the marriage created tension within the Bronson family, particularly as the Malibu home had been so closely associated with Jill. The estate's Mediterranean-style architecture and lush grounds provided privacy from the paparazzi while keeping Bronson close to the film industry. The property featured multiple structures across several acres, with the main house boasting panoramic ocean views from nearly every room. Following Bronson's death in 2003, the Malibu mansion became a source of family conflict. His will allocated the $8 million property to his third wife, Kim Weeks, along with $1.6 million in cash. This decision angered some of Bronson's children, particularly his son Tony, who alleged that Weeks had prevented the family from visiting Bronson during his final days. Both homes reflected different aspects of Bronson's personality. The Vermont farmhouse, with its federal-style brick construction, wide plank floors, and multiple fireplaces, spoke to his appreciation for American history and craftsmanship. The property's horse facilities were state-of-the-art, featuring heated stalls, automatic watering systems, and professional-grade training equipment. The Malibu estate, in contrast, embraced California's indoor-outdoor lifestyle. Floor-to-ceiling windows, expansive terraces, and multiple entertainment areas made it perfect for the Hollywood lifestyle, even though Bronson himself was famously reclusive. The two properties also represented different phases of Bronson's family life. Vermont was where he and Jill raised their blended family of 7 children, 2 from his previous marriage, 3 from hers, and 2 together, including their daughter Zuleika, for whom the farm was named. The family would often load up and travel together to wherever Bronson was filming, but Vermont remained their true home base. It was here that Zuleika trained as an equestrian, eventually competing at high levels of horse showing. The Malibu home, particularly after Jill's death, became more associated with Bronson's later years and his marriage to Kim Weeks. The contrast between the two properties mirrored the different chapters of his personal life. Bronson's real estate portfolio was just one part of his impressive financial legacy. His forward-thinking contract negotiations, particularly his 1975 deal with Warner Brothers that gave him 10 to 15% of gross receipts from movie ticket sales and film rentals, proved incredibly lucrative as the home video market exploded in the 1980s. At his death, Bronson's estate was valued at $45 million, with the real estate holdings forming a significant portion. However, the distribution of these assets created lasting family tensions. His daughter Zuleika received the largest inheritance, getting twice as much as other family members. The Vermont property, which many expected would go to his children given its association with their childhood, instead was designated for sale. The fact that much of Bronson's wealth was locked up in trust funds further frustrated family members, leading to a series of disputes that tarnished the actor's legacy. Bronson's choice of homes reflected the duality that defined his life, the public persona of the tough guy vigilante versus the private man who collected antiques and trained horses. The Vermont farm, in particular, showed how desperately he sought normalcy despite his fame. His neighbors in Vermont remembered him as a quiet, private man who participated in local life when he could. He was known to shop at local antique stores and was a familiar figure around the small town of West Windsor. The property's transformation into a premier equestrian facility also had a lasting impact on the local horse community. Even today, older riders in the area speak fondly of the era when Zuleika Farm was one of New England's finest horse training facilities. Charles Bronson's homes tell a story that his movies never could, that of a complex man who found success beyond his wildest dreams but never forgot where he came from. From the Pennsylvania coal mines to a Vermont farmhouse to a Malibu mansion, his journey was uniquely American. The Vermont farm and Malibu estate weren't just properties, they were sanctuaries where one of cinema's toughest tough guys could finally let his guard down. They housed his greatest joys, his family, his horses, his carefully collected antiques, and witnessed his deepest sorrows, particularly the loss of his beloved Jill. Today, both properties have passed to new owners, but they remain monuments to the man who proved that even the hardest exterior can hide the gentlest soul. Charles Bronson may have made his fortune playing vigilantes and outlaws, but his true legacy lives on in the places he called home. What's most remarkable about Bronson's real estate story is how it humanizes a man who seemed larger than life on screen. Behind that granite face was someone who valued privacy, family, and the simple pleasure of training horses in the Vermont countryside. If you enjoyed this intimate look at Charles Bronson's private world, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more exclusive tours of classic homes. Until then, remember that sometimes the most interesting stories aren't found on movie sets, but in the places our favorite stars called home.